There are about 14,000 young people in Northern Ireland who are not in education, employment or training, with the cost of the public sector estimated to be around £134 million. Now, the Dundrum man, Aaron Gibson, he left school at 16. He is now the CEO and the co-founder of Hurry. That is a mobile app teach business. We spoke to him earlier and I began by asking him why he left education at such a young age.
The way that I would like to look at it, Chris, is less of me not being fond of school and more school not being fond of me, to the point where I think my English teacher was the one that told me to not to say anything about anybody that works in the fast food industry, but she told me that the furthest that I would ever get would be working in McDonald's. So, really inspirational stuff from my English teacher on that point, and definitely would fall into the category of class clown, more of the case of, It's not that I didn't enjoy school. I loved going to school for the connection that you have with your school friends and whatnot. But it was more of a case of I didn't really gel with how they wanted to teach me.
Yeah, but you did have skills that you felt you could use. And these were really entrepreneurial skills more than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it sort of speaks to whenever I left school, I just being ironic, I wanted to create a company that was designed around sort of reimagining how you teach kids and sort of delivering the curriculum in a gamified way. Ended up creating that business and selling it. And it was more of a I'll show you type of situation whenever I built it. But that came from sort of my time in school, wanting to be entrepreneurial, wanting to effectively have sort of like the rebellious nature that we're known for in this part of the world, where, we want to stand up to you and sort of not have anybody tell us what to do. I sort of wanted to carve that out for myself.
So how do you feel with this idea that people would have to stay in some kind of education or training until the age of 18?
So I'm fairly split on it, if I'm perfectly honest, Chris. I think that we fall into the trap of wanting to create generation upon generation of lawyers, doctors, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that as well. But I don't think that we foster the entrepreneurial spirit enough. Belfast, from a tech perspective, you guys cover this all the time, is an incredible space. It's just one of the spaces that's growing phenomenally from an entrepreneurial perspective in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and the wider island of Ireland. And I think that if that was something that was considered alongside this, so it wasn't just a case, if it was apprenticeships or some form of that, we're very proud that both of my businesses that I currently run, we've got a couple of our guys that came to us from university and have stayed with us. We've been their only professional job that they've had, and they've been with us for around 8 years now. So if there was some combination of that baked into it, I would be all for it. But if it was just a case that we're just going to force people to be in a schoolroom, which they don't want to be, and they don't want to be there, then I would sort of be quite opposed to that, if I'm perfectly honest.
Well, I think it would be education or training. So that could be an apprenticeship, a further education college, maybe a traineeship. Do you think, had you maybe had a different kind of learning environment, that your desire to stay on in a more traditional setting might have been different?
I don't think so, because I just didn't, the way that the structure was set up for me, I just didn't want to do. I sort of needed to, you think you know everything at 16, which I'm sort of going to contradict my point here, but you need to go out and, sort of get your own war wounds, if you will, sort of like to give yourself a shake. And, you don't know it all at 16, but I do find that there is the element of, that could be real world working. But from my perspective, I needed to fall flat on my face a couple of times and sort of pick myself up before I did that. So I'm probably more of like the exception to the rule from that perspective. Yeah, very much so.
Well, yeah, I suppose you're an exception, really. It does sound like that. You obviously have this very entrepreneurial spirit. You said you came from an entrepreneurial background. Is that family? Is that somewhere in your sort of outside of school setting?
It was very much in a combination of school. I did get a detention quite a few times for selling multi-packs of Mars bars on the... So, I don't know whether, I'm pretty sure that I can't be incriminated for that now, but it was very much a combination, if you will. I took a market, which was on school lunch or break time, and that was effectively where I knew that I was able to make money. So that then went into a fund that basically had seen me through most summers and most winters.
What did your parents think when you left school?
So I think that I was a bit of a ne'er-do-well, if I'm perfectly honest. Just to
You're not
speak
selling yourself
candidly.
here, Aaron.
No, but I'm not. I know exactly what the type of person I was. I was sort of a bit of a tearaway, and to be perfectly honest, I don't really think that they knew what to do with me. I initially went in with, I was going to go into training and fall into the trap of, just doing a trade. But for unfortunate medical reasons, I wasn't able to pursue sort of like diesel mechanic, and was the trade that I was going to go into, which probably in some ways close to tech, but very much polar opposites from a cultural perspective. And I think that in doing that, and then again having to give myself a shake, I was very lucky that I got introduced with some guys in Invest NI. Gary McCausland, who sadly passed away not too long ago, was, I would describe, as a mentor in my early days of starting both of my companies. And I know that is the case for a lot of people in the tech world in Belfast and NI. And then the Princess Trust as well, a lady called Nicola Bates was incredibly gracious with her time whenever I was first starting out. So those would be the two sort of institutions that were really helpful, but less so the institutions, more so the people that were running them.
You see, I'm trying to get a picture of you, Aaron, here, and it's this really weird kind of mix, because to some extent you almost make yourself sound like a Del Boy type character. And then on the other hand, you're talking about the Princess Trust and working with Invest NI, and those are quite different skills, actually, working with those kind of people and getting through sometimes the bureaucracy of making a business like yours work.
Yeah, well, I would definitely, I take both of those as a compliment, to be perfectly honest, Chris. The reason being that, if you look at anybody that is the founder of any size of company, what it effectively is sales. What I do is sales for, I'm the CEO of Hurry.
Just explain what Hurry is, because for a lot of people, they might not know it.
Of course. So Hurry is a Belfast-based AI-powered data analytics platform. If you think of a system like ChatGPT, which again I'm sure we're all familiar with now, I'm sick of hearing about, but we effectively use that type of technology to combine all of your different data sets in order to give you a better view and vision of your data ecosystem within your organization. So effectively giving you the full picture rather than, having to spend hours pulling reports together.
Can you write code? Are you a software developer, or are those not the skills that you have? Your skill is much more business oriented.
So I have an uncanny ability to get people to do what I want them to do. So that is effectively the sort of my main skill set, if you will. As I said, I'm a good salesperson. Okay. That's sort of the way that I am described, definitely within our team. So I'm not a hands-on developer. I know enough to know whenever something doesn't look right or sound right or smell right, but I've got people that are much more intelligent than I am that effectively have built Hurry.
You said that there seems to be a exuberance for sending people to university and making lawyers and doctors and solicitors. And I know when I was at school, there was a real feeling that everyone should be applying for law or medicine or something that was incredibly vocational at a higher education level. Do you ever feel that you get not quite discriminated against, but I suppose people looking at you differently when they find out you don't have further or higher education? Has that ever come up?
I think in the early days it certainly was a barrier, but I don't know, I couldn't pinpoint the exact time where the switch flipped, if you will, but there's a lot of weight that goes behind, okay, despite not going to university, you were able to accomplish this. I do think at the start it's kind of like, oh, another, kid that knows it all wanting to come in and tell me how I'm going to do X, Y, and Z within my organization. Then flipping to, okay, so this is a kid. I say kid, I'm like 31 now, so not a kid anymore. But at the time, it was something that I was able to leverage quite extensively. So I think that my overall journey has been around 10 years now. So about 5 years ago, roughly, was whenever it sort of like switched and it became more of a positive and something that I would really bring up more frequently. And then it sort of it all became an asset at that point rather than a liability.
That was Aaron Gibson. He chatted to us earlier. He has the gift of the gab, does Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that he started a business, he's made it go work, and it's a really interesting conversation with him, because this idea of whether or not you should stay in school after 16, for some people, he's saying it does not work. But the idea of businesses giving the opportunities for people to work and get some training as well, that is what the minister's trying to sell.